defensive coordinator hype edition of the Always Irish Show. Thank you for joining me. As always, you can find me on the YouTube website. If you haven't by now, do hit subscribe and give the video a thumbs up if you approve of the content. I do appreciate that very much. On Twitter, you can find me by typing Always Irish in the search bar or at JKZND4. The merchandise link is below in the description. Audio only. You could get it wherever you like to get your audio only podcast. Like, subscribe, share, review, write mean comments. Whatever you want to do, I'm fine with it. I just enjoy the interaction. Email, alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Still trying to get back to some of you after the playoff game. Going to take me a little while. Do be patient. I will get back to all of you, though. Okay, so this isn't going to be a long show. I kind of did an extra show last week. And so some of this is going to overlap into that, but there's some nuance here I want to go over. Okay. So last week I stated that I was looking for signs of a full-scale buy-in from Captain Jack and Brian Kelly, that they're not going to just coast into comfortable retirement, but we're really willing to make an effort for a true title run as the Brian Kelly / Jack Swarbrick eras come to a close probably in a few years, okay? So when I did this show, I think it was Thursday. It was right when the Freeman news dropped. I knew it happened. I didn't have all the details, the backstory with the LSU part. I didn't have all that. I was just about to hit record when all the news broke, okay? Now that I have more information, here's what I've put together, and it ain't brain science, okay? Here's the deal. Learning the details about Freeman and LSU and how Notre Dame regrouped, stayed in the fight, went back in the bunker, came up with more money, whatever it is they did to keep going after this guy and win his services is impressive, okay? I'm impressed. Whatever it was, more money, more years, more whatever, incentives, I don't know. But learning that backstory, how LSU thought this was pretty much a done deal, and it looked like there was even a point in time where Freeman maybe even was telling people this was a done deal to LSU. The fact that Notre Dame ended up winning out in this is to be commended, okay? Usually these type of battles, whether it's for a recruit or a top assistant or whatever, I'm used to Notre Dame finishing second in these races. And it's the same thing I say about recruiting. You finish second for one of these coaches, you finish 648th. It doesn't matter if you're second or not a factor at all when you're recruiting a kid or a coach. You either get them or you don't. There's no in between, no participation ribbon. You either get the kid, get the coach, he's making plays, drawing up plays for you, or he's doing it for somebody else against you. That's one of the great things about recruiting. It's so cutthroat. It is 100% win-loss. None of this in-between stuff. None of this, hey, at least you try. No. Okay? So I am used to Notre Dame finishing second for these kind of guys. The fact that we put it together, pulled this out, and got the number one defensive coordinator everybody looking for one wanted in the country is to be commended, okay? I give Swarbrick and Kelly a hard time when they do and say stupid things, okay? I am very fair with Notre Dame. When those guys say something dumb or do something dumb, I call them out. On the flip side, when they deserve praise, genuinely, I'm going to give them praise. There's a lot of people that hate Brian Kelly, don't like Jack. Listen, I got problems with the way both of them operate sometimes. I do. If you've listened to this show, you know that. When they deserve it, I hammer them, okay? I need to be fair here. This was a home run hire and a great job by both those guys, okay? And where this ties into is I wanted to know these guys' buy-in level. Were they going to coast into retirement the next few years? Or were they willing to do what it takes to make a real title run as they both phase out and they're on the back nine of their Notre Dame careers? Seeing what they did to go get this guy was a great indicator to me that they're willing to do what it takes, okay? Ponying up more money than LSU for this kind of hire is not something I'm used to Notre Dame doing. Look what happened with Mike Elko last time. We were all upset. Why didn't you pony up the money that Texas A&M is or more? Lost Mike Elko that way. It worked out. We ended up getting Clark Lee anyways. But I'm just saying when it happened, people were saying Notre Dame's not willing to pony up or all this kind of stuff. Here we are today. Good job, Brian Kelly, Jack Swarbrick. Great hire. Way to not give up. Way to pull it out. However the hell they did it, I don't care. Great job. Great indicator to me that they're serious about putting something together here that could win big in 2 to 3 to 4 years. Okay? So credit is due to them for getting this done. This was a big boy hire. This was a big boy college football hire. And Notre Dame doesn't make a lot of those for assistants. Okay? So I'm ultra impressed. They got it done. Great job. I'll always credit them when they do something that deserves it. Good job, okay? So here's the flip side of this, okay? Here's the flip side of this. Now that I'm thinking about this, not only from the front end, but maybe also from the long-term end, okay? If this guy is all he's being built up to be, maybe he's the one you want to stick around after Brian Kelly's gone. We talked about that with Clark Lee. Clark Lee didn't come and still doesn't have what people are saying about Marcus Freeman. Not even close about dedication on the recruiting trail, all this kind of stuff. Okay, so maybe this is the angle that I'm looking at long term. Here's the thing. Whether Brian Kelly gets us over the hump or not in the next 3 to 4 years, if we somehow inherit the next hot, under 40, young, energetic, hot coach, and he's already in-house as Brian Kelly leaves, and things go well, and he's recruiting his ass off, and the defense is playing good, his personality's great, he gets used to being comfortable in Notre Dame, maybe this is the angle to a title. Maybe it has nothing to do with Brian Kelly finishing out the next 3 years. I'll give Brian Kelly credit if he led us to inherit Marcus Freeman and he's the next Lincoln Riley or something. That young, hot, modern coach. Notre Dame hasn't had that. Maybe this is that guy. I don't know. I don't know that. Okay? So here's what I would do. If this goes well, and this guy's recruiting as well as he is, communicating great, good fit for Notre Dame personality-wise, he's comfortable, you're getting high-level results from the defense. If all that happens, here's what I would do. What I would do is, as Brian Kelly's winding down his last 2 years at Notre Dame, that's when you go to Freeman and you double his pay those last 2 years, and you tell him, if this goes well, this guy's going to get other offers to be a head coach. So that's why the last 2 years of that Brian Kelly deal, double the guy's pay, do whatever you got to do, and make some agreement that when Kelly leaves, this is yours. And you'll be under 40, already established and comfortable at Notre Dame. Take it to the next level, win a title. Okay? So if things go as good as people are saying they will with this guy, based off his credentials, personality, what kind of guy he is, results on the recruiting trail already, all that stuff. If he ends up being all that, that's the path I would like to do. Could you imagine Notre Dame being the team that gets the young, hot, modern coach that everybody wanted? I can't even wrap my mind around the concept, but that might be what you're looking at here if this goes as well as people are saying it's going to go, that this guy's a slam dunk. Now, because it's in my nature, glass half empty, negative Nancy, whatever you want to call me, because it's in my nature to question stuff, And because I know how anything that has to do with Notre Dame gets blown up, any recruit gets blown up, any coaching hire gets dissected and blown up, everything's under the magnifying glass when it's Notre Dame, good or bad. That just comes with the Notre Dame football brand, okay? It occurred to me, man, this guy sounds great. Everybody's pumping him up. Are we building this guy up to be too much? Because that's what we do as Notre Dame people in general. And also, we're all in such a bad mood about the last 2 games. We needed something to put us in a good mood. So this all entered my mind. Maybe everybody's exaggerating, blowing it up. So here's what I did. I said to myself, I need an outside perspective on this. So I looked for non-Notre Dame media about Marcus Freeman, LSU. I watched some LSU podcasts on YouTube, read some of their blogs and some of their information, as well as some Cincinnati stuff too. And I was trying to see if I could find any differences between the Notre Dame perspective and everybody else. And what I learned is everybody loves the guy. Everybody loves the guy. I was not able to read a single bad word about this guy anywhere. Not in an article, not in a podcast, not in a YouTube video. Nobody around the country, whether it's Cincinnati, Notre Dame, LSU, whatever, Ohio State, nobody had a bad word to say about this guy. Everybody loves him and says he's destined not only to be a great defensive coordinator in the short term, but a head coach, okay? So I'm looking at this very long term, also short term, okay? Think about this, you guys. All we've been worried about is what are we going to do if we lose Clark Lee? We're going to lose Clark Lee. Give Clark Lee the deal to be the next guy when Kelly, all that stuff we've been thinking about, worrying about, talking about on this show, all that. This guy might be better. This guy might be better. So you might end up in the position we all wanted to be in with Clark Lee, with the guy who recruits way better than Clark Lee. I don't think that's up for debate, honestly. I haven't seen the guy's work at Notre Dame, but from everything else he's done, I don't really know if that's up for debate. Seems like this guy's a fantastic recruiter, and I love that 100%. And I want that for my defensive coordinator and the head coach at Notre Dame. This guy's a dog on the recruiting trail, okay? A dog. I love it. I'm interested. I'm interested in this long-term plan if it all works out. The results got to be there. It's bigger pressure at Notre Dame, okay? You're under the microscope. You so much as offer a kid a scholarship at Notre Dame. Everybody knows about it. They're talking about it. I don't know if you have that at Cincinnati, okay? So things are different. He's still got to come here and prove it, but his track record's great, and everybody that's interacted with him loves him, okay? So here's what I wanted to do. So this is an article from... Who is this? Kevin Sinclair? Yeah, Kevin Sinclair on 247 Sports. And it was titled 10 Recruiting Notes about Marcus Freeman. Okay, so I'm going to go over some of these. And I love what I'm reading. So I'm going to go over some of these bullet points with you guys just to share it with you in case you didn't see this article. Okay. Number 1, speaking with a source who's competed with Freeman for prospects, he said the new Irish defensive coordinator, quote, has always been tough to recruit against. He mentioned that prospects relate to him well, and you have to be relentless on the trail when going against him. Okay, you have to be relentless on the trail going against him. Something no one's ever said about Brian Kelly because it's not true. That's just a fact, people, okay? Number 2, over the 10 Cincinnati recruiting cycles prior to Freeman joining the staff, the Bearcats had signed just one class ranked in the top 50. Since he was hired in 2017, Cincinnati has signed 3 top 50 classes. Now, you could say, oh, top 50, big deal. You got to realize this is at Cincinnati, and you're not going to get any of the top local talent because they're all going to Ohio State. So you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at his recruiting credentials. One, it's Cincinnati. And two, you ain't getting any of the top local talent. They're all going to Ohio State. Okay? So that's number two. Number three, when Freeman joined the staff in 2017, it had been 7 years since the Bearcats had signed a 4-star recruit. Through his short tenure, Cincinnati signed 4 of those guys in that span. I love to see it. That's results they usually didn't get. He comes in, makes a difference. Okay. Number 4. What do we got here? 2 of those 4-star prospects came from Cincinnati, another Springfield, Ohio, which is 20 minutes from where Freeman played his high school football. The guy has good inroads and connections where Notre Dame wants to be recruiting more of. I love to hear that. With Freeman on staff, Cincinnati's recruiting class is ranked as the number 1 class in the AAC for 3 cycles, 18, 20, and 21. Over the past 10 years prior to Freeman coming on board, they'd done so only twice. Okay, so again, you're seeing the body of work from just this one guy recruiting. And again, the key thing here, it's at Cincinnati. If you could do well at Cincinnati, it's unlimited what you could do with Notre Dame's brand name and resources and national recruiting base, not local to Ohio, okay? What else do we have here? Through the 5 recruiting classes he helped build, Cincinnati signed 54 athletes from the state of Ohio, okay? His reach goes to Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan specifically. So the Midwest, that's a place where Notre Dame wants to clean up on defensive recruits. This should give them an opportunity to do so, okay? So there's a lot of other notes in here highlighting specifically what he did at Cincinnati. So I love reading all that stuff. You could just see his presence raise the whole Cincinnati program. I'm here for it. I love it. There's other notes in there about the Notre Dame recruits, how they reacted to the news. So it's all the arrows are pointing up. Okay, so here's the thing. Think about this. We were all worried about Clark Lee leaving. What are we going to do? What is that going to look like? How are we going to ever fill those shoes? He was so great. What are the odds we got a guy and everybody's happy? I just can't believe it. We finally found something within the Notre Dame community we can all agree on that this was a great hire. Blows my mind. Do you know what it takes to get pretty much all the Notre Dame fan base on the same page with something? Yet here we are with this guy. So what a turn of events from 2 horrible games to end the year and then losing your best assistant coach. People seem pretty upbeat about this, okay? So it's just really, really good to see. But I have bigger plans for Marcus Freeman than just being an assistant coach under Brian Kelly for a couple years. I hope everybody else is paying attention to that. And I'm not saying offer the guy the head job now. He's still got to come in and prove he could do what everybody says he is at Notre Dame. But if he does, this has got to be something in the works. If he's going to be the next hot, young, under 40 coach, and you got him in your building, you should have the inside track here. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at it hard, okay? Okay, let's move on to something else, shall we? Just briefly, I want to clarify this from something we talked about in last week's show. Buckner, I think, is the next opportunity for that elusive elite quarterback that Notre Dame needs to get where they want to go. He's that guy, okay? So now you have Cone coming in. A lot of people are thinking this means Cone is going to build a bridge next year into Buckner the following year. Here are my thoughts on that. I'm all for finding out what you have in Tyler Buckner as soon as possible. I'm just on edge. I want to know whether this guy has the intangibles to be that elite quarterback that we've been missing, that we're not winning anything without. The sooner I find out whether he's that guy or not, the better to me. Here's what I'd be open to. We covered how Buckner missed out on that senior season because of COVID. That kind of put him behind the development arc Notre Dame had planned for him. So here's what I'm open to. Next year's a rebuild year anyways, with a new quarterback, lost your best defensive player, redoing the offensive line, quarterback, all that. If you want to start the year maybe with Jack Cohn and do that, fine. There's a 4-game window for a freshman to play and not lose a year of eligibility. So if Buckner's not ready to go at it from day one as the starter, and we're going to work out the kinks, get all the young mistakes out of the way, grow and build together in this retool year, if you're not going to do that and they really don't think Buckner's ready physically or to be able to wrap his mind around life at Notre Dame, schoolwork and the playbook and all that, if he's not ready for that, here's what I want. Go ahead and make Jack Cohn the starter. Find 4 games for Buckner to play in. Then you're accelerating his developmental track without losing a year of eligibility. So to me, my genuine preference would be that Buckner blows the doors off everybody and you play him right away next year. Let's get him going with these receivers, changing the offense downfield, get more modern. If he's ready, I want to see it. Let's go. If he's not quite ready, start Cohn. And then when you find spots, play Buckner wherever you can. Keep him under that 4-game limit so you don't lose the eligibility. So if that ends up being the plan, I think I could live with it. But I do admit I'm on edge to see if maybe Buckner's the guy we've been wanting for 11 years from Brian Kelly and we've never seen. The sooner I find out whether he is or isn't, the better. So if a middle ground solution is starting Cohn early in the year, finding 4 games for Buckner or whatever, I could live with that. Don't waste that year of eligibility unless you're willing to go all in with Buckner right away. So that's my thought on the quarterback situation as we sit today. Okay. In regards to my buddy Jim Harbaugh, after all this BS and them going silent and all not playing Ohio State and all this stuff, the guy gets a 5-year extension with lower base pay. It's very incentive-laden, beating Ohio State, winning the division, winning the conference. That ain't happening, so don't worry about any of that. So he's going to have a lower base pay, but he's sticking around. Here's the other thing. If I was a Michigan fan, I'd be losing my freaking mind about this. As a Notre Dame guy, I love it and embrace it. But if I was a Michigan fan, I wouldn't like this. Unless I'm incorrect in what I read, I believe he just hired somebody off his brother's staff with the Ravens to come in and be his defensive coordinator. I think his name's Mike McDonald, not the Doobie brother. What a fool believes. Okay, that's enough of that. But whenever I hear Mike McDonald, I think of the Doobie Brothers. I don't think it's him, and if it was, that would be really interesting. But a different Mike McDonald coming off his brother's staff with the Ravens. Now, if I'm a Michigan guy, I don't like this. And the reason I don't like this is now I got the feeling you're hiring this guy because your brother said he's a good guy, he would be a good fit, hire him. If this was the first time that happened, fine. But knowing that the offensive coordinator, Josh Gaddis, that Harbaugh hired last, was hired over a 15-minute phone call with no in-person interview, that rubs me the wrong way. Okay? So does this. Here's how I read this. I don't think Harbaugh likes being told you got to fire the guys you hire to get new guys. I don't think he likes that. So he half-asses through the process. That's why he hired an offensive coordinator over a 12-minute phone call, not even in person. And then I see that he's hiring one of his brother's staffers from the NFL. Same thing. Something with that's a little fishy in terms of the process. And I wouldn't love it if I'm a Michigan fan. As a Notre Dame guy, I love it and embrace it fully. So the real winners in this is Ohio State. So they're the real winners in this. I'm sure they appreciate this extension very much. Okay. So Speaking of Ohio State, what do I think about the title game last night? I have two main thoughts. One is Alabama's really, really good at football. They are really, really good. They have a great coaching staff, and they just have a boatload of elite talent. Okay, that's number one. Here's number two, though. Seeing how many points Ohio State allowed against Alabama makes me even more mad at our offense. It looks like the defense did just about as good as anybody could do slowing down this team. Now, generally speaking, I would never say entering any game I'd be happy if Notre Dame only gave up in the low 30s to anybody. I'd say get to 30, it's too many points for Notre Dame to give up. This is an exception. Some of the Clemson teams are an exception. Okay, when you have clearly obvious elite skill all over. Okay, so now that I look at this, giving up low 30s to them was the lowest point total they've had since 2018. The defense kept Notre Dame around. Now, I know you could say this, and I said it too. Alabama pulled off the gas. They weren't trying to score late. All that, fine. I agree with it. Ultimately, it was 31 points, though. Okay? So, I ended up leaving last night more mad at our offense that they couldn't do anything when the defense held in there and held Alabama to their lowest score in almost 3 years. Okay? The offense couldn't hang. It's not a big-time playoff offense. It reaffirmed it for me last night. And I was sitting there getting mad, going, man, yeah, I was frustrated with the defense giving up touchdowns on Alabama's first 3 drives. But looking at Ohio State and the other playoff games and Alabama's history, that low 30s isn't that bad. Too bad the offense couldn't do shit. Nothing. And that made me mad last night. It's all I was thinking about, okay? Too bad the offense couldn't do anything, okay? That, to me, what we rolled out there in the ACC title game and then the playoff, in terms of offense, you just can't have that in year 11. You just can't. I just think it has to be better than that in year 11, okay? So here's the final thing that makes me think about. And it brings me back to a existential question I had about Tommy Rees when he first got hired. One of my big questions was, what is the dynamic between Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees? My position on that was, I thought it'd be kind of hard to go from coach recruit, like when their relationship started, Brian Kelly's the coach with all this unwielding power and everything, and Tommy Rees is some teenager being recruited, then he's a player, then he's the quarterback, you have that dynamic. So my question is, how does that relationship turn from years and years and years of coach-player dynamic to coach-coach, where they're on an equal playing field? That was a big question I had about the dynamic between these two. Would Rees just be a yes man for Brian Kelly? Would he have autonomy to say, hey, wait a second, I'm not comfortable with the direction we're going, or I really think based on our personnel, we need to do something different? Those are the inner workings of that relationship I'm interested in learning more about. Why this is relevant is right now is the time I need somebody at Notre Dame to make sure everybody knows we got to build kind of a new offense. No, not avoiding a power run game, getting away from that. No. You need to maintain all of that identity and build a modern, down-the-field, aggressive, attacking offense that we just didn't see or see enough of the last couple years. So I need to know, does Tommy Rees think the way things are is just fine and we'll keep doing it and win a playoff game? Or is Tommy Rees sitting there saying, man, I want to get this thing really humming and more modern, but we were maybe hamstrung by what the quarterback's capable of or whatever. I just want to know this dynamic, where their heads are at. I'm looking for a little comfort that everybody involved agrees that this offense needs some modern retooling. I guess that's what I'm looking for. Some reassurance that that is being recognized and acknowledged and will be addressed. So I don't think we're going to get a lot of those answers until next year, but I need to know somebody over there recognizes this offense ain't good enough. We need to get more modern. Okay, so it's making me revisit the Kelly Reese power dynamic. I just want to know where we're at here. Who's calling the shots? How much more modern does Tommy want to be than Kelly is allowing? Like, all those sorts of things. They're just questions in my mind I'd like answers to. Okay, so that's going to be it. We went a half hour. The next full episode is going to be unveiling the recruiting plan I have to get more modern. And for once, I found a way to have Notre Dame ahead of a trend that's coming in college football. I want Notre Dame in front of this, not chasing from behind. So that's what we'll go over next time. Thank you for joining me. Have a great night. Peace out.